So guys, before this episode starts, I just wanted to say, there was one guy that I had inspiration for making this series. His name is Wyatt. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. He posted a video yesterday about what has been going on since he's been gone, like what his mental health was, and I'm not going to go deep into that. There will be a video in there. You can once you click the YouTube channel, go to videos, and you'll click the latest video. You'll see what's been going on with him. And I just want to say, keep your thoughts and prayers with Wyatt's world. Help him stay strong and be able to come back whenever he feels like he needs to come back. The football community is not the same without him. I know there's guys like Tom Grizzly, Scooter McGruder, Urinating Tree, and all that stuff, but one of the inspirations for making this series was Wyatt's world, so definitely keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Also, use that time when you click on his channel to subscribe to him because he makes some great videos on football once he is active. So once he gets back into the YouTube thing, he's going to start making videos, but still, go ahead and subscribe. It shows some support for him, man. Wyatt, if you're watching this, we're always with you. Never forget that we are always with you no matter what happens. Anyways, welcome back to Grizzly Talks Football. We got Week 14 NFL reactions. Once again, if you are watching this series for the first time, I will leave a link in the description with the entire playlist so that you guys can go and watch every single episode up to this point so that you're all caught up and you'll also have future episodes whenever I post them. Also, make sure you hit the red subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video, like a single episode or a single video whenever I feel like posting one of them again. Also, make sure you smash that like button. This week I did pretty good, but not great at either. But without further delay, let's get to the games. Kicking this week off, we got the Thursday night matchup between the Packers and Lions, with the Lions coming out on top with the last second field goal in the end of regulation, 34-31. Let me tell you, this game was extremely good, but there was a better game that you will find out about later. So on the day, Jordan Love had 12 of 20 for 200 yards and a touchdown pass, only one touchdown because Josh Jacobs completely wrecked the Lions defense with the touchdowns. He had 3 of them. Leading receiver was actually Christian Watson, who had 4 catches for 114 yards. Only 4 receivers were involved in this game. Well, Jayden Reed was too, but he didn't get a single catch. And the only touchdown of the day was hauled in by my main tight end right now in fantasy, Tucker Kraft. And unfortunately, the fantasy football season was over. I finished 5-9 in the regular season. Yeah, it sucks. At least I ended the season on a positive note with a win. But just too many losses due to injuries and some poor play from unexpected people to be playing badly just really hurt me. Only one sack by Rashawn Gary, and there was also an interception by Keyshawn Nixon. Just could not stop the passing attacks to save their lives. They allowed a couple touchdowns through the air as well. Speaking of which, Jared Goff had 41 pass attempts. He completed 32 with them for 280 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. As far as rushing and receiving, David Montgomery had 50 rushing yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had a receiving touchdown, along with 2 of them from Tim Patrick. Oh yeah, and Jameson Williams had 5 catches for 80 yards as well. Thought I'd mention the leader of receiving yards for the team. Also, only 1 sack for the Lions defense, courtesy of Zadarius Smith. It was just an offensive show. And I want to give a big shout out to Jake Bates, the man, the myth, the legend for the Lions, who has kicked a few game winners this season to help the Lions go to 12-1. He made 2 field goals, including the game winner on Thursday night. He had 10 total points in this game as well. And believe it or not, despite this game, the NFC North is still pretty much open to anybody to win the division, even though for the Packers, it's a little bit more slim now. But other than that, the 2-horse race is still on, with the Lions and Vikings competing to be perhaps the number 1 seed in the NFC. Oh, actually, no, most definitely, if you don't include the Eagles. Kicking off the Sunday 1 o'clock slate, we had the Browns losing to the Steelers in the rematch 27-14. Same thing that happened last week. The turnovers for Jameis Winston completely derailed the Browns' momentum. Even though Jameis Winston had a pretty okay game, but not great. 24-41 for 212 yards for 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Rushing game was okay, but only running 25 times? Seriously, Browns, why are you making Jameis Winston throw 41 times when you have Nick Chubb as your running back? I know he had a knee injury, but he is Nick fucking Chubb. Give him the ball. Later receivers for the Browns were Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, combining for 12 catches for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only 2 touchdowns through the air. And to the surprise of everybody, the Browns defense only had 1 sack the entire game. So, key point here, the Browns defense is inconsistent. As for the Steelers, Russell Wilson, 15 of 26 for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very interesting in my opinion. Rushing game was pretty solid. Najee Harris had 50 rushing yards and a score. Receiving core was pretty much really well balanced. Pratt Freiermuth and Van Jefferson had touchdowns. And I believe George Pickens was either suspended or he just got hurt. Do let me know what happened to him in the comments because I actually have no clue. 3 sacks, 2 of them coming from Cam Hayward, the other going from Highsmith, and 2 interceptions by Keanu Benton and James Pierre. Those are 2 names I have never said before. At this point, Browns are pretty much eliminated, and the Steelers have 10 wins and might as well be on their way to the playoffs. As the winners of the AFC North, that remains to be seen, especially with the Ravens knocking on the door still. Up next, we had a little defensive battle in our hands as it came down to a blocked field goal where the Saints beat the Giants 14-11 in a tank bowl. Let me just tell you, both of these teams suck. Like, seriously, come on. Are we even surprised at this point that it's this low score of a game? But hey, don't disrespect defensive games because they could wow you even though no points were scored. Well, specifically 25. Derek Carr had a pretty solid game. He had 20 of 31 for 220 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Kendre Miller had the only rushing touchdown of the game. And the only receiving touchdown came from Jawan Johnson. Interesting. Saints defense came to play. Brian Bresee, I know now it's not Brees, it's Bresee. He got a sack and also a blocked field goal that gave the Saints the win. The other side went to Saunders, interception by Demario Davis. I haven't said that name in a while. I just wanted to applaud for the Giants that they forced Drew Lock to throw 49 times in this game. He threw 49 times and only completed 21 passes. That is concerning, and he also didn't get a touchdown on 230 yards, and he also threw a pick. At least the rushing game was pretty solid with Tracy getting the touchdown and Drew Lock getting almost 12 yards a carry. Whoa. I don't think anybody's surprised that Malik Neighbors is leading the receiving category with 5 catches for 79 yards. Trey Hawkins had the interception, and there were also 2 sacks by Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Interesting. Sorry, Giants. Now you know what it feels like to be a Bears or Broncos fan to have that blocked field goal that loses you the game. Anyways, for the Saints, only thing I can say is this is a lose-lose because not only did the Giants lose the game, but the Saints also lose out on a high draft pick. Although they probably won't even get that great of a pick anyway. Up next, we had the overtime thriller that was between the Jets and the Dolphins, with the Dolphins coming out on top 32-26. I gotta say, I was not expecting this game to be close, and I was not expecting the Jets to have a lead. What in the hell happened to Miami's defense? That's all I could say. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty good game. We had 27 of 39, 340 yards, and a touchdown. Rushing game was pretty solid. We had Isaiah Davis getting a rushing touchdown. That's one I haven't heard. I think Breece Hall got injured. Jets had 2 100-yard receivers. Garrett Wilson with 7 catches, 114 yards, and Devontae Adams with 9 catches, 109 yards, and a score. No sacks or picks for this Jets defense, but hey, big shout out to Jamin Sherwood with 13 tackles. That's pretty impressive. Oh yeah, and Anders Carlson made 4 field goals and had 14 points in the game. That's insane. But in the end, the Jets defense completely choked. Thanks to Tua Tagovailoa's 33 of 47 for 330 yards and 2 touchdown passes, including a game-winning touchdown. Devon Achane had the only rushing touchdown, but other than that, the rushing game sucked. Tyreek Hill was the only 100-yard receiver with 10 catches for 115 yards and a score, but Jalen Waddle also had 9 catches for 99 yards and a 2-point conversion, and Jonnu Smith had the game-winning touchdown to give the Dolphins the victory. 3 sacks for the Dolphins defense, including 2 from Zach Sealer. And this was also a good day for kickers because Jason Sanders also had 4 field goals, including a 57-yarder. Jets, can you not find ways to lose games? I can't remember which team it was. That's the Giants' job. That's the Bears' job. Like, come on, man. Just take your L and try to get a quarterback that will help you lead the team. Or, I don't think, get an offensive line. Please. Up next, we had a little tank bowl, a super tank bowl, in fact. Jaguars were able to beat the Titans 10-6. I like defensive battles, but I hated this game. Mac Jones was complete ass. I mean, I guess he was very accurate for the most part, 23 of 31 for 220 yards, but he also threw 2 picks. Tank Bigsby had the only rushing touchdown. Rushing game was a bit of mid. Brian Thomas continues to be a very solid wide receiver 2. Well, he should be a wide receiver 1 in my opinion. 8 catches for 86 yards. 2 sacks for the Jags defense, and both of these defenses played well pretty much the entire game, less the Titans having to allow Tank Bigsby to score. And somehow the Titans were even worse. I mean, Will Levis didn't throw a touchdown, but he also didn't throw a pick either. Pretty consistent with 19 of 32 for 170 yards. At least Tony Pollard was pretty good, 100 yards rushing on the day. And the leading receiver, of course, was Calvin Ridley with 7 catches for 59 yards. Can I just ask the Titans, how in the hell did you get 2 interceptions from Otis Reese and Chidobe Awuzie and a sack from Harold Landry, but you still lose the game because you can't generate shit for offense? You better thank the stars that Nick Folk showed up for this game. At least he got the only points that the team had the entire game. You know, as much as I wish that Nick Folk would have made 2 more field goals to help the Titans win the game, I think they did this to themselves. Next game, I don't want to talk about this shit anymore. And somehow this one made me feel worse. Yep, the Vikings kicked the Falcons' ass, 42-21. As soon as that 4th quarter hit, it was just over. It was just Jover. Kirk Cousins forgot what team he was playing for, and our defense looked like ass. And this makes Atlanta's streak go to 4 straight losing games. Kirk Cousins, sure, he had 23 of 37, 350 yards, but he threw 2 interceptions. At least the Bijan Algier duo showed up with 150 total rushing yards and 2 total touchdowns between the two. Our 2 best receivers were Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod. I expected Darnell Mooney, but Ray McLeod? Really? They had a combined 240 yards on 14 catches. The fact that we had 4 sacks in this game, but allowed 42 points, shows how bad our secondary was. Man, they were cheeks. We really just allowed Sam Darnold to have a fucking masterclass. 22 of 28 for 350 yards and 5 touchdowns. Yeah, somebody had more. You're going to find out who that is later. We couldn't exactly stop the run because Aaron Jones had 6 yards to carry almost and a touchdown of 73 rushing yards. And it was a 2-man show for the receiving corps. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson combined for 15 catches, 260 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. Yeah, that 2 receivers, that 2-man show is going to be a problem. There was a sack by Jamin Davis, but the main catalyst was the 2 interceptions by Byron Murphy and Josh Metellus. Like, the defense completely showed out after that first 3 quarters. Such an embarrassing loss, and guess what? The Falcons no longer have first place in the NFC South. Thanks a lot, Raheem Morris. How fucking dare you have Kirk Cousins thrown 37 times when he's not even 100%? Like, he doesn't even know what team he's on. Like, Bijan and Algier need to get more carries. That's all I'm saying. Up next, we had a little stunner. We had the Panthers almost beating the Eagles 22-16, but Panthers once again came up short. I don't know how many weeks in a row this. I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks that Carolina has lost 1-possession games to future playoff teams. Bryce Young had a pretty okay game. I mean, he had 19 of 34, 190 yards, a touchdown, and a pick, but he's improving. Let's get that right. Chuba Hubbard led rushing with 92 rushing yards and a score. Leading receiver was Adam Thielen, who had 9 catches, 102 yards, with the only touchdown going to Tommy Tremble. 4 sacks for the Panthers defense, with 1.5 coming from Ashawn Robinson and Josie Jewell. Yet the Panthers just couldn't step up when it mattered most. Or rather, the offense did, but can't really blame Bryce Young. The defense put him in a hole when they couldn't get out of. Jalen Hurts, he played it safe with the passing game, 14-21 for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, and he also got a rushing touchdown. Oh yeah, and Saquon had 120 rushing yards in the game. Yeah, the Panthers defense just couldn't stop the run. They just couldn't stop Philly from scoring. Not much to show for in the passing game except the touchdowns by Devontae Smith and Grant Calcaterra. We had some Cooper DeJean action, but he didn't really get too involved. With a sack from Zach Munn and an interception by C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that's how the Eagles were able to win their game. Along with, I can't remember, it was like a holding penalty or something for Carolina that screwed him over on the last drive. If they didn't commit a penalty on that one pass that went all the way to like the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line, Panthers might actually won that game. But in the end, it's just what if. Sorry, Panthers. And the Eagles are just one step closer to clinching the division. Dear God, help us all if they make the damn Super Bowl. And the final game of this Sunday 1 o'clock slate, we had the Raiders losing to the Bucs 28-13. Are we even surprised? And now the Raiders' QB injuries got worse because AOC is out. He might be done for the year now. So Desmond Ridder is now their quarterback. Yikes. I know the pain of having Desmond Ridder as a starting quarterback. I would know. Ridder and O'Connell combined for 23 of 37 for 200 yards and an interception by AOC. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. Rushing was led once again by Sincere McCormick. I don't know who that is. Somebody tell me all about him, please. And Aiden O'Connell got the only touchdown through the rushing game. Michael Meyer is back and he led the receiving corps along with Jacoby Myers. Both of them had 7 catches for about the same yardage. You mean to tell me the Raiders defense had a combined 4 sacks and 2 interceptions from Caleb Chasen and Jack Jones, yet their offense was complete ass? Well, thank God Daniel Carson was able to show up to at least give the Raiders to put up a fight. A kind of Brett Favre game for Baker Mayfield with 18 of 29 for 300 yards. He did have 3 touchdown passes, but also the 2 interceptions. Rachaad White, 5 yards a carry for 90 rushing yards and a touchdown. But can someone please explain why Sean Tucker had 15.7 yards a carry? Maybe because he had a long run. That's the only reason why. Leading receiver was Cade Otton with 3 catches for 70 yards. Guess who the 3 touchdowns went to? Yeah, Rachaad White also had a receiving touchdown. At Jalen McMillan, he had 2 of them. 2 sacks on the day and an interception for the Bucs defense, but pretty much it was just a 2-quarterback show and they just could not do anything against the Bucs. Man, I wonder who has the first pick. Oh wait, it's the Raiders? I can't say I'm surprised. And Tampa Bay is first place in the NFC South. Yep, fucking B. Kicking off the 4 o'clock slate, we got the Seahawks beating the Cardinals 30-18. I gotta be honest, I did not see this coming. Geno Smith had a pretty solid day. He had 24-30 for 230 yards and a touchdown pass. But the main man of this offense had to be Zach Charbonnet. 22 carries, 134 rushing yards, 6 yards to carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. This was his breakout game, and everybody better believe it. Yeah, and Charbonnet also had almost 200 total yards rushing and receiving as well with his 59 receiving yards, but leading receiver was Jackson Smith-Njigba with 5 catches, 82 yards, and the only receiving touchdown. 2 sacks and 2 interceptions by Kobe Bryant and Ernest Jones were just 2 of the great things about that Seahawks defense. They were able to step up in the crunch time. Kyler Murray's day was alright. I mean, he had 25-38 for 260 yards, 2 touchdown passes, but also 2 picks. James Conner completely dismantled the rushing game with 5 yards to carry and 90 yards. Leading receiver, of course, was Trey McBride, 7 catches for 70 yards, with touchdowns going to Michael Wilson. James Conner also had a receiving touchdown. No sacks or interceptions for this Cardinals defense. Yep. They could not stop anything that came their way, but shout out to Buda Baker for 18 total tackles. Seahawks are still first place, but if we know anything, this NFC West is wide open. Like, completely wide open, so anybody can win that damn division. These final couple weeks will pretty much decide this whole entire division itself. Up next, we had an absolute blowout by the 49ers against the Chicago Bears, 38-13. Man, the 49ers offense came to play. First game with a new coach, Caleb Williams actually played well. I mean, he had 17-23 for 140 yards and 2 touchdown passes, only threw 23 times because they didn't get very many snaps to begin with. Well, it's more the amount of times Caleb Williams got sacked. You're going to see that in a minute. Rushing game was pretty mid. Only highlight of the receiving core really is Roma Dunze with 4 catches, 42 yards, and 2 scores. A second interception by Jonathan Owens for the Bears defense. A team can only do so well when you have a terrible offensive line. Get that fixed, Chicago. Brandon Allen threw an interception, but aside from that, Brock Purdy had a very impressive game as well, with 20-25 for 325 yards, 2 touchdown passes. And for some reason, the 3rd and 4th string running backs had a total of 100 yards on 22 carries and 3 touchdowns combined. So when McCaffrey goes down, everybody pretty much is almost like him, but not exactly like him in his prime. But still, that is crazy to think. Leading receiver was George Kittle with 6 catches, 150 yards. But the 2 touchdowns came to Jawan Jennings with 7 catches for 90 yards and 2 scores. And by God, this 49ers defense had their lunch with Caleb Williams. 6 sacks. 2 of them coming from Floyd and 3 of them coming from Yetur Gross-Matos. 49ers did extremely well on both sides of the ball. Unfortunately, the defense played solid until the fact that they realized the Bears still don't have an offensive line. New coach, I mean, it's the same shit. At least without the bad clock management. In the final game of the Sunday 4 o'clock slate, we had the Game of the Year candidate for this week. The Rams outlasting the Bills 44-42. This was the game you guys have been waiting for. You were waiting for me to comment about this game because this was insane. Player of the game, even though he was on the losing team, it had to be Josh Allen. 22 of 37 for 340 yards passing. But he had 3 touchdowns through the air and 3 on the ground. And yet they still lost because their defense is absolute garbage. At least for that game. Oh yeah, if you add the rushing yards, Josh Allen had 400 total yards. Over 400. Only 100-yard receiver was Khalil Shakir, who had 5 catches, 106 yards and a score. Amari Cooper did have 6 catches for 95 yards, with the other receiving touchdowns coming from Ty Johnson out of the backfield and Mac Hollins. Like I said before, the Bills defense just could not get a single turnover or sack on Stafford. Like, this was a rare off game for the Bills defense in my opinion. Matt Stafford on the game, he actually pretty well. 23 of 30 for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. But let's look at rushing and receiving. Kyren Williams, yeah, he had almost 90 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua, 2 total touchdowns and almost 180 total yards rushing and receiving, including 12 catches for 162 receiving yards, with Cooper Kupp getting 5 catches for 92 yards and a score as well. Well, it was more of the fact that both defenses decided not to show up for this game. My God, I figured this was going to be a shootout, and boy was I right, but I was way off on the points. It was way more than that. I'm calling it right now, unless there is an even bigger game that puts up like 50-50 or something, this is the game of the year right here. And I tried to tell you, when the Rams are healthy, they are a playoff caliber team, 100%. And in the Sunday night matchup, we had the Chiefs edging by the Chargers 19-17 at home. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call believing in dark magic.
This is for the division, for the Chiefs. For the division. It's the dike for the division, for the Chiefs.
This was putting your fate in Satan's hands himself. Like, come the fuck on, man. As I always say, they can't keep getting away with it! One rule I learned, don't give the Chiefs the ball last, because they will break your heart. Justin Herbert, he had 21 of 30 for 200 yards and a touchdown. Not terrible, but not the greatest performance. You had to be 100%. Unfortunately, he was not. Gus Edwards' rushing game was pretty much mid, but Gus Edwards had the only touchdown. Josh Palmer led receiving with 6 catches for 78 yards, with a touchdown coming from Quentin Johnson. Barishal McConkey got injured. As much as I want to say 3 sacks for the Chargers defense, unfortunately, they couldn't step up when it mattered most. Pat Mahomes, he had a pretty okay game as well. 24-37 for 210 yards and a score. Not much to really show for the rushing game, though. And the only player with a receiving touchdown was DeAndre Hopkins. There were also 3 sacks from the Chiefs defense, with 2 of them coming from Tershawn Wharton. But the MVP of the game had to be the 3rd kicker that the Chiefs have had, Matthew Wright. And I found out that the Chiefs are the first team in NFL history to have 3 different kickers kick game winners. Unfucking believable. The doink in the division was a work of Satan. So the Chiefs love giving their fans some damn heart attacks. I hope karma comes their way in the playoffs. I'm not hoping for the regular season. That's too soon. Save it for the playoffs. And the final game of this week was the Monday night matchup between the Bengals and the Cowgirls. Yep, they played like Cowgirls yet again at the end of the game. Let me just tell you, Ian, for those of you who don't know, the Cowboys blocked the punt with like over a minute left, and that punt went forward, like past the line of scrimmage, and unfortunately one of the Cowboys tried to catch it. Yeah, he tried to catch it, ended up being muffed. Bengals recovered, it's Bengals ball. And then Bengals went from there and got a Jamar Chase touchdown to win the game. Joe Burrow again had a monster game, 33 of 44 for 370 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Disregard the rushing game, it was pretty mid. Jamar Chase had another video game-like stat line. 14 catches, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown, a guy I have a fantasy, had himself a touchdown on the receiving end. 3 sacks for the Bengals defense, plus an interception by Geno Stone. This was like one of the first games that the Bengals defense actually played a very good game. Daily mention to Bengals kicker Cade York. Somehow he got there because McPherson is hurt. That's not to say that Cooper Rush didn't have a bad game either. He was pretty solid, 16 of 31 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I swear to God, every time I bet the Chiefs, it just gets dark. Anyways, Rico Dowdle had 18 carries for 130 yards. He had a monster game as well. And CeeDee Lamb was a man on the mission with 6 catches for 93 yards in the score, with the other touchdown going to Brandon Cooks again. 2 sacks from 2 players, including 1.5 from Maurice Lufau. I hope I said that right. And an interception by Malik Hooker. Say it with me, guys. How about those Cowboys? And that is a great way to end this episode of Grizzly Talks Football. If you're enjoying this episode, make sure you smash that like button, hit the red subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you don't miss a single one of my episodes and other videos whenever I decide to post them again. This is the Grizz, and that's all from me. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace!